On behalf of the Utah Debate Commission, we are pleased to come to you tonight from the campus of the University of Utah at the Cleone Peterson Eccles Studio at PBS Utah. The candidates who met the qualifications for this debate are Katrina Fallick-Wang and Burgess Owens. We are looking forward to a lively and civil debate with the goal of giving Utah voters firsthand exposure to candidates and good information for decision-making. If you'd like to participate via social media, we encourage your comments and questions for the candidates. Use the hashtag UTDebates on social media. A random drawing held prior to the debate determined that candidate Owens will get the initial response to the first question. We'll then alternate turns on the remaining questions throughout the debate. Let's begin. First question. Why do you want this job? And why are you the most qualified person to represent Utah's 4th District, candidate Owens?
Well, first of all, thanks so much. Why do I want this job? Because I love our country. I also feel that Utah is a very unique place. I grew up in an environment back in Deep South in the 60s where I understood and had a chance to experience this, where faith, family, free market education was at the foremost of my parents' generation. And they taught us how to love our nation, how to fight for it, how to stand for it. And what I've realized coming here with my 6 kids and 17 grandkids is this is the place that still have those values. And it's not that easy to hold on to. It's organic. It's something that, because of the way we raise our kids, learning how to serve, how to get outside their comfort zone, learning how to be entrepreneurial and take risks. And then the key is also being able to pass a legacy down. That's very, very unique. So this is a unique place. Utah and that's why it's one of the fastest growing states in the union. And my goal very simply is to make sure part of my legacy is that we can pass this down to the next generation. I'm excited about being part of that process.
Same question, Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the University of Utah and the Utah Debate Commission for this amazing opportunity. The reason I decided to run was to provide representation to the hardworking families of Utah's 4th Congressional District. Like a lot of people in our district, I have worked hard my entire life, from my teenage years driving a wheat truck during wheat harvest to my current role in digital marketing as a working mom. As a mom of 4, I know firsthand the struggles that Utah families face. I know firsthand the difficulty between balancing family and business, healthcare and mortgage, and I want to be the candidate that puts Utah families first.
Moving on to the next question. If elected, you would likely be part of a very narrow majority or minority in a closely divided Congress. Your votes would matter quite a bit. How would you take on that responsibility and use your vote to the benefit of the 4th District? This question goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
As a relative newcomer and someone who is not a politician, my goal always is to put Utah families first. I am ready to work in a bipartisan way with Democrats, Republicans, independents. I don't care what your party is. Our role in government is to solve problems for Utah families and make everyone in the United States' lives better.
Same question, Mr. Owens.
Well, it starts off with having a foundation of what your belief system. Again, the reason why we settled here with my 6 kids and 17 grandkids is I realized this is a place that we'll find nothing more rewarding and inviting and safe than we have here. So if we start off with that premise, the key is then what do we do to make sure that we're always standing up for the values that has made our state the great state it is. So it's really a matter of being able to communicate, obviously, reach across the aisle, be respectful, but always understanding what your bottom line is, what the values are that you stand for and will fight for. I've been very fortunate to see how that works, as initially in a minority party initially, in a very small majority where you have a lot of chaos because it's so small, and I'm looking forward to being part of a solution with a bigger majority, the Senate, and President Trump. I'm excited about that process.
We'll have a 30-second follow-up to this question as well in the same order, Ms. Fallick-Wang and then Mr. Owens. In the lead up to the November election, we've seen polarizing speech at all levels of government. As a member of Congress, what is your role in cooling the political climate so that Americans can move forward together?
I love this question because this is absolutely why I decided to run. It is critical for the health of our nation that we lower the temperature, that we get rid of divisive rhetoric and get to work moving our country forward.
Mr. Owens.
I think part of it, obviously, is who we choose to represent us. If we get representatives on both sides of the aisle that is America first, we can disagree on many things, but still have the same end game, which makes sure our country's moving forward, our kids being taken care of, they have a good legacy moving forward. So part of the answer to that is make sure that we're sending to Congress people who care about our country, will prioritize it, and also stand strongly in a respectful way as we debate those issues that we have to get through.
Next, we have a student question.
My father served as a paralegal in the military for 16 years and was involved in over 200 administrative separations. He witnessed firsthand the immediate and significant consequences members faced for misconduct, such as separation or loss of security clearances. However, public officials often face fewer or delayed repercussions for similar behavior. Given their role in representing the people, what standards of accountability should elected officials be held to?
Thank you, Naftali Garcia Arana. And this question goes first to Mr. Owens.
I think part of it is what type of government representatives do we have? Those are actually, I'll call the bureaucrats that really stay around for quite a while. My dad also was a World War II vet, so I have a deep respect for anybody who served. And the fact that we saw over the last process with COVID, how many of our really warriors were treated because they did not agree with certain things that was going on. So part of the question, part of the solution is first about being aware that things like this was happening. The other part is making sure that we put in place a president who's going to understand the issues and begin to resolve and get the right people in office that will respect our warriors and moving forward.
Same question from our University of Utah student to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Thank you. I will start by saying that I am here to talk about myself and about the role that I would like to play in Congress. I feel that it is absolutely critical that we elect people who have the ethics and the backbone and the character to be able to stand up at a minimum to the same level as we expect our servicemen and women. For too long, we have allowed politicians to get away with things that we in our personal lives would never get away with. And we have to stop that. We have to have our leaders be held to a higher standard.
Thank you. Moving on now to immigration. Congress has been unable to reach an agreement on immigration reform for decades. A comprehensive, negotiated, bipartisan reform package was defeated earlier this year. What would you do to address immigration, and would you support bipartisan legislation to solve this crisis? Candidate Fallick-Wang.
I truly think that bipartisan legislation is the key to solving so many of these issues. When we look at something like immigration, we are in this mess because both sides have taken extremist views that are honestly using families as hostages in their war against each other. We need an accessible and efficient path to citizenship for the families who want to come here, build better lives, and participate in our economy and in our communities. Yeah.
Your thoughts on immigration, Mr. Owens?
Partnership is fine as long as both sides have the same end game. which is what is good for America. What we've seen the last 4 years is what's worse for America. When you prioritize people coming in with chaos, it disrupts everything we want to do in our country. We have a country that believes in order. We've had for years people coming to this country and doing it the right way, and they raise their hand to become American citizens. You see tears coming down their eyes because they've understood the power of being an American. We've had the last 4 years an administration who believed that bipartisanship means disorder. We have to make sure that matter of fact, we had something called H.R. 2, the first thing we put together that would have actually put things back in place the way that President Trump had it when the border was at order, in some order. So we have to get back to basics and make sure at the end of the day, the same end game on both sides of the aisle. And I think we have a chance to do that. Now that American people are waking up, we have a chance this coming 4 years to do some remarkable things together to make sure we seal that process up.
Moving now to the budget. For decades, voters have heard about a coming catastrophe resulting from federal budget deficits. Yet the balance keeps climbing despite which party controls Congress. Has the notion of balancing spending with revenue on the federal level become meaningless? And this goes to Mr. Owens first.
It is something that we talk about as a conference every week we come together. The debt we're going through, the fact that we're passing something down to our kids that they will not be able to handle and control. To have this conversation, we need to be able to talk about three things: Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. If those are not part of the conversation, we're not talking about our debt. And unfortunately, as we get into those issues that we know are really going to be coming to an end, some of them in the next few years, we have a fear from the other side once we start talking innovation. What we need to bring into this conversation is what can we do that's different, that gives the opportunity for those who have paid in to make sure they keep their rights and their payment, but also for those that are coming down the pike to have even a better life, a better opportunity as time goes on. So we can do that with innovation, but we have to make sure we have a Congress in place, a Senate, and a president who's willing to do it without fear-mongering.
Same question on a balanced budget.
We have failed our young people really in allowing this deficit to continue to expand. Like I said, I'm not a politician, but I've been a single mom. I am from a large family. And I know, like a lot of you do, that when you get yourself very deep in debt, it's not going to be an instantaneous thing to get out. It's going to take dedication, it's going to take commitment, and it's going to take smart investing of the taxpayer dollars into initiatives that will build revenue and curb unnecessary spending.
We're going to move on to our next question, which is regarding illegal drugs. Regarding this, some argue that the focus should be on border security to stop the flow of illegal drugs from entering our country, while others argue we should first address the domestic demand for these substances. If elected, where would you put your focus? And this question goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I hate when these questions are posed as either or. It's really critical that we do both things. I know there are so many families who are hurting because they have family members who are struggling with drug addiction or have passed from drug addiction. To save our families, to save our young people, we need to address that. We also need to address the drugs coming into the country, but there are plenty of drugs in the country already. Utah has a huge problem with opioids, which are prescribed. Solving the border crisis isn't going to stop the opioid crisis. So yeah, I think we need to address first the family needs and the people that are really hurting and struggling right now.
Same question, Mr. Owens.
We can do both. It starts off with understanding that when people lose hope, they tend to go toward things that take away the pain, those drugs. Same time, we have a border, an open border, in which precursors are coming from China like never before. We have over 100,000 Americans have died over the last couple of years because of what's happening through the border. So that in itself, to me, is an attack on our country. So we have to, first of all, seal the border. Not only we have drugs, we have sex trafficking, we have children that have been trafficked through. If you can think of the worst things that can happen to American people, if people around the world, you're seeing what's happening at our border right now. So let's seal that, and then let's go ahead and start dealing with how can we make sure people have hope again. Getting rid of our inflation, which is a way to, you're talking about getting people to believe they cannot achieve anymore. Getting our education system in place where young people can have an idea they can really move forward and do some great things. There are things we can do in both ways, handling the impact of drugs, but more importantly, initially we can do right now is shut the border so the drugs don't come in and impact our citizenship the way it does.
Our next question is also from student Annabelle Green.
9 out of 10 Utahns live in urban areas, as defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. And like Utah's other congressional districts, the 4th mixes rural and urban landscapes. If chosen by voters, how would you serve the diverse and sometimes competing needs of the district?
And this question goes first to Mr. Owens.
I love it. First of all, I have a love for rural. My grandfather was a very successful farmer in Texas. My dad was an agronomist and he had a farm also. So I understand that culture. It is one that truly defines our nation. And we need to make sure that culture, which they don't do a lot of complaining. That's not the squeaky wheel. And that's why it's so important for those of us who represent them to make sure they're getting everything they need to have to support themselves, to build businesses down that way, to have the infrastructure so that the internet is accessible to them, to have the process in which they can hold on to their kids, which we all want to do, but they can stay in those areas, build their farms, build their businesses, because they can still be excited about the technology that they're being given. So we have to make sure that the options we have up in the northern part, urban areas, we have the exact same thing in our rural. And as a representative of District 4, I have a very big heart to make sure that happens.
Same question on representing both urban and rural voters to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
This is another example of the ways in which I think we are much more similar than we are different. Farmers absolutely get vilified too much, especially when it comes to water. Our farmers want to use water and want to use resources well and carefully, just the same as our local, as our more urban families do. So I really want to stay away from pitting those sides against each other because they're not. We all want a thriving state. We all want children with full bellies, and we all want really quality education, whether you live in the city or whether you live hours from town.
And moving on to a question that affects people from both urban and rural places in Utah. High housing prices frustrate Utah voters in their effort to secure homes for their families. What can Congress do to increase home affordability for Utahns? This goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
This is the single question that I get the most as I've traveled around the 4th District talking to people. Everyone is frustrated. Young people are frustrated that they can't buy a home and raise their children near their families. People like me have had their children have to move out of state and take their grandbabies with them. It's really critical that we get large corporations, foreign investors out of the landlord business. Utah homes should be for Utah families.
Same question.
That's one that all of us, all parents, are thinking about because we all want our kids to be able to stay close home, like no other culture I've seen. We do that by, first of all, dealing with inflation. Inflation takes away the dreams of Americans across the country if cannot afford it all of a sudden. We need to make sure we seal the border, because the first thing that happens is that when people come across the border, supply and demand says that if there's apartment units being rented, then their price is going to go up. In the past, those who could not afford homes could go into an apartment for a while, save their money up, and go out and buy a home. Those things are changing. When it comes down to federal lands, right now the state has taken some efforts to get back some of the lands that has been taken over by the federal government. 60% of Utah lands are owned or taken over by the federal government. We take that federal land back, it gives us some options, more supply for the demand we have coming in as the fastest growing state in the union. So there's several things we can do in that regard.
Moving on to social media. what is your position on federal laws restricting access to social media for children? And can these restrictions pass a First Amendment challenge? This goes first to candidate
I'm
Owens.
all in. This is a national security. We have to recognize the one thing we always want to do is protect our children. Our children are now under attack by people who do not like our country, do not like our values, and we're seeing the result of that, of an increased suicides, kids who just have no vision or no way of moving forward. So yes, I agree that we need to have something that's across the board that keeps the bad things out of our kids. Now, one of the things that we're doing statewide is that each state is also taking a look at that, and we'd love to see if we can find a way to maybe give grants to help our districts and our school systems be able to deal with these issues also.
Same question on social media to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I think any time that we have a federal government stepping in and controlling the way that individual citizens live their lives and communicate, that is something that we absolutely do not want. I don't know how we went from small government, trusting families to know what's best for themselves and to know what's best for their children, to this big government oversight where someone up in Washington who does not know me, does not know my children, has the power to control really how I raise my children. That is something that I think we need to stay very far away from.
I'll give a 30-second
Just
answer.
know that we've always had ways to protect our kids. Pornography is one thing that we all know as across the board as a country, we're not supposed to allow that for our young people. So there are things that we have to recognize that we're losing our children, we're losing their way, they're losing their hopes, they're losing their lives. And for us not to take a federal look at how we can make that happen, keep them within our lanes, work with the state, but we have to deal with something right now that's attacking our children.
And we'll give 30 seconds to Ms. Fallick-Wang as well.
Absolutely. I think this comparison of social media to pornography is not really a good one. Absolutely, we need things in place. I think letting states make these kinds of decisions is probably a good choice. I just don't think, to your point, that it would pass a First Amendment challenge.
We have now reached the halfway point of the debate featuring candidates for Utah's 4th Congressional District. Those participating in tonight's debate are Katrina Fallick-Wang and Burgess Owens. Once again, I'm Caroline Ballard, and we still encourage your comments and questions. Please use the hashtag UTDebates on social media. Now, let's get back to the debate. We're going to move now to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. In recent years, there has been greater attention placed on the ethics and financial reporting requirements of federal judges. Do you think current ethics rules are robust enough, or should they be strengthened with significant consequences for violations? And this goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I do not see what possible harm there could be in expecting some of the leaders at the highest level of government to also maintain the highest ethical standards. I think that's something that we deserve to be, to have our laws and our legislation be from people with impeccable moral character and values, and it's our right as citizens to demand that.
Same question.
And we should demand that from every level. I just want to make a point that it's only when the left starts losing their cases, their strategies of taking us off track from our culture of faith, family, free market education. Only when that happens is all of a sudden they're now attacking the Supreme Court. So to understand what we're doing, what we're hearing here, it's not a matter of extra standards. We have people, good people that have been put in place. It's when they start ruling against what the left wants, all of a sudden it's really the court itself. Packing the court is something they've also talked about because they're not happy with the results of what's coming down because of this last year or so.
Staying with the Supreme Court, quick follow-up. We'll have 30 seconds for each of these. Public opinion polls show that trust in the United States Supreme Court is at an all-time low. What do you believe Congress could do to restore Americans' faith in the High Court? And we'll go in the same order, Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I think we have to first restore Americans' faith in their leaders. And the way that we do that is by actually solving some problems. We get inflation under control. We get the border under control. We get our educational standards up to where they need to be. And once we have served our constituents in that way, then we will have earned the right to
Same
ask
question,
that from
Mr.
them.
Owens.
I think it's important to understand the only way we can be undermine our system, faith in our system, is by not educating our kids, our citizens, essentially what our system should look like. So I think part of this process is understand what the Supreme Court's supposed to do, what their role is, and how it's supposed to be a balance of power, and why it stands where it does, and how they're even brought into the system through a president process. So education is part of it. Right now, we're finding out we have a lack of confidence in so many areas. Not only the Supreme Court, our election laws, and this is all because there's been an attack on our system in those regards. So we have to make sure we address that.
Thank you. We're going to move now to foreign policy. First up, are the tactics employed by Israel in its war with Hamas justifiable, considering the suffering inflicted on the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, as well as the civilians in Lebanon? And this goes first to Mr. Owens.
Absolutely. We've never seen in the history of war a country that's been as careful as it has to make sure that there's no harm done, collateral damage. What we have is evil, and this is what we understand. Evil is very simply this: they hide behind innocence, they attack behind innocence, they destroy behind innocence. And the minute you go after them, when innocence gets hurt, they then blame the victim. October 7th was a day that we should never ever forget, and remember who did it. And we're dealing with evil, so yes, I think the key is we can do everything we can to support Israel, make sure we get it done as quickly as we can, not slow them down or stop them in the way the Biden administration has done. But Israel is a country that shares our values, that loves life, and wants to make sure they protect it whenever possible.
Same question on Israel's tactics to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I'm just going to be really, really frank with you guys, because that is who I am as a person. I am a pacifist. I strongly, strongly believe that we need to move always in a diplomatic direction, in a direction that minimizes the loss of human life, whether that is Israeli life or Palestinian life. We have to move in a way that honors all of those people and honors all human life.
Moving on now to Ukraine and Russia. What's your position on continued support for Ukraine in its war with Russia? Do you believe Ukraine will have to cede territory and abandon its desire to join NATO in order to achieve a settlement with Russia? This goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
The Ukrainian people and Ukraine has had a very, very hard go of it. As one of our allies, it is absolutely our responsibility to stand up for them and help them in any way that we can. And I truly hope that we can. America is an amazing country. We have a strong military, and we have a strong history of standing up for people who are being persecuted. And I have to believe that we can help Ukraine in order to not have to cede any of their lands.
Mr. Owens.
First of all, we recognize that Russia is an evil actor. What they did was evil. The pain they're bringing on to the Ukrainian people is just as evil. And we want to be able to support Ukraine, but at the same time, we want to make sure that our monies, our tax dollars are going to the right place. When Israel asks for support, we actually asked a few things. How's it going to be spent? What's the end game? How do you see ending this process? And they gave us a litany of answers we needed. We gave that same template to President Biden, and we never got any answers. American people deserve to know, first of all, where our money is going. Is this an endless war? Is there an end game? Is there any strategies that we are aware of that we can actually get some things accomplished? Meanwhile, we're dealing with 15 to 20 million people coming through our border, and we can't seem to find the funds to make sure that our people are safe here, that when children come through, that they have the DNA testing, that they're tied to the people they're coming through with. These are the kind of things we have to really resolve and realize American people come first, and we can make sure we take care of our allies from that point on.
A follow-up, as we're talking about these conflicts, is the United States prepared to face any potential upswing in terrorism, either from overseas actors or from domestic sources? We'll go in the same order, 30 seconds each. Ms. Fallick-Wang.
So, I am not in Congress yet. That means that I do not have insight into fully the capabilities, but it is crucial that America have the resources that it needs, that our armed services have the resources that they need, and that the border has the resources that it needs to keep Americans safe.
Same question.
I have probably less confidence in our ability to fight off an attack than ever have before because of the last 4 years. We have a totally open border, 13,000 murderers, 15,000 rapists that have been allowed to come through. We have gangs coming in from every part of the world, and yet it's been happening on the watch of Biden and Harris, and nothing's been done about it. So it is going to be just a matter of time before we have to pay a price for that. The key is how can we bring somebody into place, President Trump, that understands the threat and begins to alleviate that threat in the fastest way we can possible. But we're going to be dealing with this for at least a generation, I believe.
Moving on to China and foreign policy, how should Congress address China's economic, foreign policy, and military challenges to the United States? Mr. Owens.
Recognize that China is not a friend. China is a country with a different type of culture. They have an end game which is not pro-American, and they don't mind taking decades to get there. So we have to recognize who they are, begin to pull back those things that we can control ourselves. Our supply chain, for instance, should never go through China. We should never trust China as a ally, quote ally, because they're not going to do anything good. Right now, they're trying to figure out how they can take over Taiwan, and we have to have strength in our office, in our administration, so we can make sure that doesn't happen. So we have to look at them as who they are. They've proven themselves with COVID and what's coming through the border, precursors. They're not our friends.
How should we deal with China, Ms. Fallick-Wang?
I want to say respectfully, Representative Owens, I am not here to talk about Biden or Trump. I'm here to talk about your job and hopefully my job and the things that we can bring to the people of Utah, irregardless of who wins. I think it's really critical that regardless of our party affiliation, regardless of who the president is, that's why we have the House. That's why we have the Senate. That's why we send people like Representative Owens and myself to these Congress, to the House and to the Senate, so that we can be the voice of Utahns.
30-second rebuttal to Mr. Owens.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. This what we also understand is that we stand as a voice for the American people. And we want to make sure that our team wins because our team has a vision. Our vision for the Republican Party, very simply, is faith, family, the free market, and education. And that's from top all the way down to down ballot for me. So in that case, if that's what we're looking for, then keep in mind President Trump or President Biden or Harris will make a difference in that process.
And a chance to respond, 30 seconds, Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Yeah, I think really one of the issues has been this partisanship. Both teams have plays that they want to make. Both teams have ideals that they want to press forward. But when we spend too long trying to score points on one side or the other, we don't end up making any forward progress for the United States.
Moving on now to abortion. Would you support federal legislation that would impose a nationwide ban or restriction on abortion? This goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I absolutely would not. The federal government does not have any place in my doctor's office. It does not have any place in my bedroom. It does not have any place in my bathroom. That is, I feel, a huge overreach, and I absolutely would oppose that kind of legislation. I have daughters, I have sisters, and like it or not, abortion is life-saving health care. We have to keep in mind the safety and health of all of the women of our country.
Mr. Owens.
I agree that we should not let it stay, not let it be in the federal hands. It's about we the people. I know what was in federal hands over the last 40 years, there have been 20 million black babies who have been exterminated. That's 40% of the black community. And it's because of this federal overreach of 9 people on Supreme Court. It should be where we the people are. We should have conversations like we're having right now. We can have very respectful. We can make sure we're trying to change minds if we can. But that's the only way it works. We the people are part of the solution and not some bureaucrat or some justice in D.C. that mandates everything for all of us. So we totally agree on that. Let it go down to the states. Let us have a chance to talk about it. And if you don't like what the state has, guess what? We can always move.
We are seeing shortages of healthcare providers specializing in women's health, especially in rural areas after the Dobbs decision. According to Utah's Department of Health and Human Services, 10 counties in the state have an insufficient number of providers to meet maternal health care needs, and 4 counties have no care. Do you believe there's a need for federal programs ensuring there are enough healthcare workers to support women's health? This goes first to Mr. Owens.
That's an area that we have to really take a good look at, because this is happening throughout our rural areas across the board, the lack of medical care, period. We have to be able to bring the technology so that, whether it be telehealth, for instance, that we can actually allow those things to happen. Make sure that we don't have monopolies, in institutional monopolies that take away the business opportunities for our physicians. So there are a lot of ways we need to take a look at this. Again, I think between the two, making sure that there's opportunities to run a business and be successful to business, and also making sure they have the technology that wherever they might be, they can support the population that they're serving.
Ms. Fallick-Wang,
I want to kind of call back to something that you said, Representative Owens, about if you don't like the state's rules, move. We have a lot of OBGYNs that are leaving states that have passed restrictive abortion bans. And I want to say, I don't think that the women of Utah and the families of Utah deserve a lower standard of care, that they deserve less choice in their healthcare providers just because they happen to live in Utah.
Mr. Owens, 30 seconds.
I respectfully want to disagree. What women in Utah have are different values. It's really about values. If the values are best set, they love their babies, they think they should support them any way they can. If we have a support system around us, then that's their choice. Those who don't want to do that, then obviously Utah might not be the place. And they have to make that decision, because at the end of the day, we believe in life, and we're willing to fight for life. And that's important for us here in Utah.
Ms. Fallick-Wang, 30 seconds to answer.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said. When doctors leave states, as we have seen in Utah, as we have seen in Idaho, because the state is legislating how they can practice medicine, that goes beyond honoring life. I'll say this again. I don't think anyone wants to see babies dead. I don't think anyone wants to see women dead. We have to come together with ethical and compassionate solutions.
Utah, we have a question from social media. Very exciting to have people answering. So this is from Selka Van Dyke on X. How do the candidates plan to protect our LGBTQ kids amidst vitriolic attacks from politicians throughout the country? This goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
This is one of the reasons that I decided to run. As a member of the LGBTQ community, as a mother to LGBTQ children and an auntie to LGBTQ nieces and nephews, I absolutely want to protect these children. And I wanted to run to show them that even though we have some legislators in the state who are behaving very hatefully, that most Utahns love them and support them. Utah is a place full of people who care about their children deeply, who care about their neighbors, who love unconditionally, and I want to show that to all of the children of Utah.
Same question, Mr. Owens.
And I'll say this, I think that our country had come to a point where we understood we have friends, family members that are gay, and there's no problem with that. It's when they move over to this next step of trans, when all of a sudden you can't define what a man is, what a woman is, when you have men that are competing against women, when you have talking to our kids at the earliest 5 or 6 years old about transitioning, when you can't go to school without having this indoctrination of sex, which should not belong in these areas. So we're dealing with something quite different. Let's continue to embrace each other based on our sexual preference. That's okay. Let's not force something that is so no common sense on the rest of us and think we're going to take it. At the end of the day, men belong in men's bathroom, women belong in women's bathroom. It's X, Y, XX. Depending on which one you are, that's where you belong. And it should not be on the field of competing against women. Men should not be.
Ms. Fallick-Wang, a rebuttal?
Yes, absolutely. I am the parent of a trans child, and it hurts me, and it hurts him so deeply. He's just in 6th grade, and all that he wants to do is run track. He has friends, little girls who want to play soccer, and they can't play soccer because there's not enough girls at their school who want to play, and they're not able to have a co-ed team. I understand the conversations at a high level with sports, but with little children, like, it's hampering their future.
Thank you, Ms. Wang, and 40 seconds.
I appreciate your thoughts there. I think one of the things we need to teach our young people is what fairness is also. It's important. There's XX and XY, men and women. It's been for the history of time. And the fact is, it would have been so unfair for me as a man to compete against women and think that would be fair. That in itself sets a tone that we're not beginning to understand empathy and recognize what women are going through, girls are going through. When they compete, give everything they can, and a young man stands up and takes their honors, their opportunities. So we have to make sure we're being fair. Sometimes they're guide rails. This is a guide rail you don't go over. If you're a boy, you just don't go over it. If we understand that, then they don't feel something wrong with somebody saying no to that.
We're going to move on to education now. Utah recently created the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program that awards funds to parents who can then use the money in a variety of ways to support their children's education. Proponents of the program say it offers family more choice. Critics call it a voucher system. Do you support this new policy, and is this a strategy the U.S. Congress should pursue? This goes first to Mr. Owens.
Absolutely. Let me say this. The true civil rights of our day is giving our kids the ability to learn, to think, and to succeed. The fact that we're standing here at this level because it's not our kids that are being harmed, we think is okay. Every child should have that option. Every mother should have that option. I look at California back in 2017, 75% of the black boys in the state of California could not pass standard reading and writing tests, could not read and write. And yet you have the same people that would not like them to leave these failing schools and be okay with it. It comes down to this. We either care and prioritize our kids, or we care and prioritize our institutions. Every parent should be able to take a look at their child, see what their talents is, what their interest is, and find the best way for them to find their dreams. And anybody who stands against that, we need to know they are not a friend of the American society, the American culture, the American way. If we understand that, then we'll be a little bit bolder about giving every child an option to succeed in life.
Ms. Fallick-Wang, same question on this system.
I would not support this system. That said, I agree that every child deserves an absolutely quality education. Every child in the U.S. deserves that. That is something that we have promised them at a federal level, which is why I don't want school funding to be left to states. I don't think the quality of the education that is available to you should depend on the state you live in or the zip code that you live in. We need to make sure that we are funding well our public education system.
30 seconds to Mr. Owens.
In Congress right now, and what I love about Utah is we understand our lanes. And we collaborate like no other state in the union in terms of federal and state legislators. We have in place now something that we can call scholarship granting organizations that goes throughout the country, has no strings to federal, has no strings to state, but allows us to take tax credits from those who want to invest in our kids and allow them to go to any school, any child or any parent might want to give themselves some options. So it's a solution. Again, the students, the teachers' unions are against it, but for Americans who want their kids to succeed, we're for it.
Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Yeah, the fact that teachers are against it says enough to me. Our teachers are amazing, amazing professionals. And I will say again, it's great to allow opportunities like that to people who can afford them in districts that can afford them. But I want the same quality education for all children in America.
Turning now, we're going to talk about something I think is on a lot of Utahns' minds, which is the economy. Many Utahns are concerned about the state of our economy, particularly about rising costs. As a member of Congress, what specific steps will you take to address these concerns and mitigate the impact of inflation? And this goes first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Like everyone here in Utah, I have experienced the rising cost of groceries and the rising costs at the pump. This is something that is a big concern for everyone in America, not just in Utah, and it's a concern for our Utah families. In Congress, I will prioritize our Utah families and our Utah small businesses over the needs of giant corporations. It is just not fair that companies like Amazon pay no taxes when our working families are struggling. That's just not right. So, yeah, in short, I would try and level out that playing field so that families have a little more room to breathe and everyone is paying taxes fairly by closing some of those loopholes.
Mr. Owens, the economy and inflation.
Real quickly, just want to make one real quick comment. Teachers are not against choice. Teachers' unions are against choice. The same teachers' unions that kept our kids out of school for the last 2 years, 2 years of COVID. This comes down to very simply being a visionary, being innovative, and letting America do what we do best. Let's first of all make sure we bring energy back. The first thing that Biden did was to stop the Keystone Pipeline, which is if we have lower energies, everything else goes down. We need to look at anything that impacts inflation. If we're spending too much money doing things, of course, supply and demand says that the value of that dollar will go down. We need to make sure that we're also anything we can do to make sure that business owners are not dealing with the onerous rules and regulations that I've never seen anything like it the last couple of years. So those things in itself will allow our business owners to grow, our middle class to grow, and that's how we get, again, the dream power back again.
A follow-up question while we're on the topic of the economy. As a member of Congress, what specific national strategies do you believe would best prepare future workers for employment? And this will go first to Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I am a huge supporter of the trades and apprenticeship programs. I've seen young people have enormous success there. I also want to say community colleges are sort of some of the unsung heroes. It's an amazing way for some of our young people to get an education and get a start in their fields without taking on extreme amounts of debt.
Same strategies.
Secretary and I agree with Katrina. We have so many ways about young people getting education that will be able to fulfill their dreams. All of it is not a four-year college education. What I've already done is I presented something called College Choice for Kids, which basically says this: we have what's called a learning employment record, a digital record that keeps everything that we've done, whether it be from SLIC or from UT, wherever it might be, and it's interoperable, so it goes across different platforms. It allows the student to connect with that employee base and make that happen.
Thank you. As we come up close to the end of the debate, we're going to move to 30-second questions now as we move on to our next topic, which is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence presents a potential balancing act between innovation and job protection and privacy concerns. What role should Congress play in the advancement or the regulation of AI in our country? Mr. Owens.
And this is a conversation that we're having with some of the brightest minds. We have to take a look at AI as something that's happening, just like the internet. And you're right, it could be done for good or ill. And as long as we have the moral fabric in our country to know what's right, then we can compete in a way that's going to be right and fair to those who take advantage of it. Know that China is also going after AI without the moral balance that we're familiar with. So we should lean in, be smart, be more moral about it, and make sure we're being very transparent on how this might work and what the benefits might be.
Ms. Fallick-Wang.
I work in tech. I work with AI every day. I am so excited about the opportunities that AI plays for us as a civilization, and I'm also worried about the dangers that it poses. I would say we need to elect more young people who understand this technology and can really craft good legislation around it.
This is our final question. Utah's rapid population growth and agricultural demands are placing increasing strain on limited water resources. As a member of Congress, how would you work with federal, state, and local entities to craft innovative water policies that meet the needs of urban and rural communities while ensuring long-term sustainability? And this goes to Ms. Fallick-Wang first.
I love this question because I am so excited about the opportunities. Utah is a perfect state for this. We have so many innovators. We have so many new companies. I really want to partner with those new innovations to create some technology around our environment, around green technology that can help manage that growth and keep Utah beautiful and livable for generations.
Same question, Sterling.
We are the most innovative state in the union. And because we have these issues and the way we collaborate, we can come up with solutions that the rest of the country can benefit from. So innovation, infrastructure, collaboration between not only Utah, but the rest of the western states that are having the same issues, and have the technology that literally, as we come up with the right solutions, which is going to be a hard, heavy lift, but we come up with the solutions, it's going to benefit the rest of the country as we find those ways to benefit ourselves.
And one final yes-no question. Will you accept the outcome of this race, even if you are not the winner? Mr. Owens.
If it's fair. It's not a yes or no question. There's a reason why we certify. It's not just to say yes or no. It's to say if we have issues with it. I came out of Philadelphia area. I voted against it because I know what Philadelphia.
We're on time, Ms. Fallick-Wang.
Yes.
We've now reached the end of the debate. A random drawing has determined earlier that the first closing statement would go to Mr. Owens.
First of all, I want to thank Katrina. This is the way Utah works. You know, we have different ways of approaching it, but we have the same vision. We want to make sure our kids are growing and prospering, our country is successful, and I love that. And I want to say this to those that are watching. Thank you for the legacy you've given to Utah. There's a reason why we're the fastest growing state in the union. The happiest state in the union is because you've taken what your parents taught you and your grandparents taught you, and you're passing it down. Let's make sure we fight for that. Let's not give it up. I grew up in the same kind of environment as I was a kid, and it's no longer there in Tallahassee, Florida. It's something we have. It's special. It's worth fighting for. So let's keep our values, but let's make sure the people that go back to D.C. have your values and willing to take our ways and take them back to D.C. versus the other way around.
And now, Ms. Fallick-Wang, your closing statement.
Thank you so much. Representative Owens has been in office for 4 years. And during that time here in Utah, we've seen housing prices continue to rise. We have spending more than ever at the grocery store. You've heard it said by now that politics is too important to be left to politicians. I am not a politician. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a family member here in Utah, and I strongly believe that I am the candidate with the character and the conviction to work with anyone in Congress, Republican, Democrat, Independent, to solve problems and make meaningful change for Utah families.
Our thanks to the candidates tonight. Thank you very much to our sponsors, to the University of Utah and the Utah Debate Commission. I'm Caroline Ballard. Thank you. Get out and vote. Good night.